Tonight on CFTK-TV News, we hear from our new MP for Skeena-Bulkley Valley, the Prince Rupert RCMP have a new detachment, and Donald Trump's first 100 days in office.
Northwest BC's only television news team. We are CFTK-TV News.
Hello, and thanks for joining us on this Tuesday, April 29th, 2025. I'm Jaylene Matthews. We begin tonight with our news local to the Northwest. In the wake of the federal election, we have a new MP for Skeena-Bulkley Valley, which marks a big change for the region. Conservative candidate Ellis Ross has been elected, having accrued about 47.8% of the vote and over 21,000 votes. Previous MP Taylor Backrack of the NDP has since publicly stated that he gave Ellis a call to congratulate him on his win and welcomed him to his new position. Backrack came second in the race with 39.3% of the vote and over 17,000 votes. This is the first time someone other than an NDP member won this riding since it was established in its current form back in 2004. Ross is also the first ever Indigenous person to win the riding, and with Tamara Davidson becoming the North Coast MLA this year, it's also the first time ever that the North Coast has had both an Indigenous MLA as well as an Indigenous MP. Ross stopped by the CFTK-TV studios today for a chat. He says he's ready to be the opposition.
Well, it's not new to me. I've been in opposition in the BC legislature for 7 years as an MLA, so I understand what the role is, but it still doesn't change my priorities in terms of what I wanted to see get done for BC and Canada, and especially for our riding.
We asked Ross what his main goals would be this term.
There's a lot of goals. Affordability is a big issue. The drugs is a crisis. In BC, it's been declared since 2016. I'm not a fan of the drug experiment that took place here in the last 3 years with the BC Liberal, not the BC Liberals, but the Liberals and NDP. Not a fan of that. Not a fan of the idea of not really doing something about the criminal element. The catch and release system has got to end. I mean, for the safety of our community, safety of our members. But really, it really comes down to drugs. But overall, 15 years ago, I decided that to the best of my ability, I was not going to allow what happened to me as a young man happen to anybody else. I struggled as a young man trying to find a job. And if you can't get a job, you can't get a credit rating. You can't get a credit rating, you can't get a mortgage. So you can't buy a house. So when I found out that I was not unique in Canada as an Aboriginal growing up on reserve, and in fact many Aboriginals face this all across Canada, I decided I was going to commit myself to make sure that everybody has an opportunity at a good life. And a good life meaning independence and being able to basically build their own lives. And I still commit to that.
And we'll have more from our interview with MP Ellis Ross coming up later this week. The city of Prince Rupert is holding a ribbon-cutting ceremony as a way of officially celebrating the opening of their brand new Royal Canadian Mounted Police Detachment. The new state-of-the-art building is located on 145 Marketplace. The previous building was built in 1978 and deemed inadequate. Despite today's ceremony, this detachment has been operational for the past while now, and the RCMP have already moved into it. As the new government forms in the wake of the federal election, federal politicians are gearing up for a new session, and the trade war is top of mind. In his victory speech, Carney pledged to unite a divided country in the face of ongoing tensions with the United States. He promised to lead a government that represents all Canadians and said the country works when Canadians pull together. Here's CTV's Mike Lecoutel with details from the election aftermath.
Prime Minister Carney arrived at his office saying he had a lot of energy and a lot to do. As the trade war with the U.S. continues, Carney's other challenge is to govern a country divided along political lines.
And my message to every Canadian is this: no matter where you live, no matter what language you speak, no matter how you voted, I will always do my best to represent everyone who calls Canada home.
In a minority parliament, the Liberals will have to find a dance partner in order to pass any legislation. And it would seem the Bloc Québécois is ready to listen.
Kind of a truce in which the Liberals would refrain from being offensive about language and security of the state and immigration and oil. Looking at what we have in common and working on that.
A working relationship that premiers say could use a reset as the country continues to fight a trade war with the U.S.
I want to work alongside this federal government to build a strong and growing Saskatchewan, as I said, within a very united and strong growing nation of Canada.
BC's premier went one step further with this message for members of Parliament.
This is the time for all MPs to pull together and to deliver for Canadians regardless of party, to deliver the stability that we need and a strong, united face against Donald Trump.
As Canadian politicians call for a collective response, the new U.S. ambassador to Canada was received by Governor General Mary Simon at Rideau Hall. Last week, Carney said after winning the election, he'd push for a meeting with President Trump within days. But so far, there's no indication when that'll happen.
Coming up next, more details emerge from the Lapu Lapu Festival attack. Welcome back. A visitor from Ontario is the latest confirmed case of measles in BC. Fraser Health says the visitor traveled to Vancouver and Chilliwack on April 20th after arriving from an Air Canada flight from Toronto and visited the Chilliwack Coliseum and a local hotel. The health authority says they are following up directly with people known to have been exposed, while others in the area visited by the individual from Ontario are asked to monitor for symptoms such as fevers and rashes. Those who develop symptoms are asked to stay home to avoid spreading the disease, adding that they should contact health authorities immediately to discuss further treatment. The man accused of driving a vehicle through a crowd of festival goers in Vancouver was under the care of a mental health team. The statement from BC's Ministry of Health says Adam Kaiji Low was being followed closely under the Mental Health Act, and there was no indication of violence in his presentation to the Vancouver Coastal Health Team. It says to the care team's knowledge, there was no recent change in his condition of non-compliance with his treatment plan that would have warranted him needing to be hospitalized involuntarily. As we learn more about the tragic events that transpired, one man who restrained the attacker is sharing details on what happened. Here's CTV's Kevin Chirac.
The screams for help, the screams of pain.
Antoine Vergara describes the horrific scene Saturday night. He was working as a vendor at the Lapu Lapu Festival.
We were happy and we were having fun as a community.
Welcome to Lapu Lapu Day!
Celebrating Filipino culture when tragedy struck.
He revved up even more after he hit someone, so it was all so fast, but I just saw bodies flying and people screaming and lots of cries, and it was all very shocking.
The 25-year-old acted quick, chasing the driver down alongside other bystanders.
Yeah, he got out of the vehicle, he started running. I just went straight down and sprinted straight down to where the SUV was.
Vergara, seen here in videos posted to social media, helped restrain the accused until police arrived.
I got face to face with him.
What was that like?
It was tough because he looked like he didn't have any remorse. He didn't look like he had any soul behind his eyes. He was completely cold, and there was absolutely no remorse in his eyes. He didn't say much until someone hit him, and then he started saying sorry.
I'm sorry. Smile!
Vergara says he tried speaking to the suspect.
I was just asking him why he did what he did and what's wrong with him. Like, what were the reasons behind his actions?
He never got a response.
I want to say my deep appreciation on behalf of the entire province to those people who stepped up in heroic ways, to the people who grabbed the perpetrator and held him for police.
Vergara says he can't stop thinking about the victims and is now focused on supporting his community.
I just hope that this tragedy brings a change and prioritizes public safety.
Kevin Chirac, CTV News, Vancouver.
Turning to the weather, the sun rose at 5:57 a.m. this morning and sets at 9:05 p.m. tonight. Tonight, on the north coast, conditions are looking partly cloudy with a low of +5 degrees. Over the next few days on the north coast, expect a mix of sun and clouds tomorrow with a high of 11 degrees. Thursday, the rain will come in and stick around for a few days. Daily highs in the 5 to 12 degree range and overnight lows in the 5 to 9 degree range. Tonight, in the Terrace-Kitimat area, conditions are looking partly cloudy with winds from the south gusting to 40, becoming light late this evening, low of +3 degrees. Over the next few days in the Terrace-Kitimat area, expect a mix of sun and clouds tomorrow, then clouds and rain for the rest of the week. Daily highs in the 10 to 15 degree range, overnight lows in the 4 to 9 degree range. In the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, tonight conditions are looking partly cloudy, becoming clear near midnight. Winds from the west at 20 kilometers an hour, becoming light later in the evening, a low of -5 degrees and a wind chill of -7 overnight. Over the next few days in the Bulkley Valley and Lakes District, expect sunshine tomorrow, then clouds for the rest of the week. Daily temperatures sitting between 12 and 17 degrees, overnight lows between 1 and 7 degrees. Checking your highways around the Northwest now. On Highway 16, watch for bridge maintenance and repairs, as well as utility work, industrial traffic, pothole repair, and road sweeping. On Highway 37, there's road sweeping. On Highway 37A, there's a road closure from 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. from Mesiadin to Stewart. There's also falling rocks to watch for and bridge maintenance. On Telegraph Creek Road, there are muddy sections and the rest areas closed at Burnt Trailer Tanzilla access. And this is what the roads were looking like around the region this afternoon from the view of the province's highway cams. Still to come, new incentives to attract nurses. Police say they're investigating the discovery of partial human remains found scattered across part of a rural property west of Kamloops. Police say major crime investigators and personnel with forensic identification services were called in to process the scene and found the partial remains scattered across an area of the property. Police say they are unsure of the point of origin of the remains, and investigators are working to determine the identity of the person who died and the circumstances of their death. And some interesting news when it comes to our struggling healthcare system. New incentives are being put in place to attract healthcare workers to the province. Here's CTV's Andy Garland.
What if we picked a day in like a month and a half or so where all of you come up here?
It was the invitation heard by thousands. A viral post welcoming Americans to Nanaimo to show our countries are not divided by politics. And it worked. Nearly 500 showed up.
I wanted to surprise my partner. She loves hiking and loves waterfalls, and we just thrive in nature.
In the crowd are Rachel and Lisa from Texas, who are a same-sex couple and concerned about LGBTQ rights under the Trump administration.
Living the life that we enjoy and we are entitled to, we know that it could be a reality that we have to leave.
Both are nurses and were approached by recruiters to come check out the ER at Nanaimo Regional General Hospital while in town.
This would have been our first easiest route out of America, I'm not going to lie. You know, with our nursing licenses would be easily transferable here.
For BC to send a clear message to doctors and nurses who are working in the U.S. Now is the time to come to British Columbia.
Last month, Health Minister Josie Osborne announced the province would remove red tape making a smoother transition for doctors and nurses in the U.S. to make the move, and are actively recruiting.
Putting our names out there and building a community where we might be able to come to retire to who knows, the opportunities are endless.
The couple are still figuring out their next phase in life, but say this opportunity to visit Nanaimo and potentially making the move here is a huge possibility.
Oh my gosh, it's gorgeous. It's 90 degrees in Texas. This is amazing.
Andy Garland, CTV News, Nanaimo.
The Prime Minister's office says Mark Carney and U.S. President Donald Trump have agreed to meet in person in the near future. An account of a call between the two leaders released this afternoon by the Prime Minister's office says that Trump congratulated Carney on his federal election victory. Trump was a major factor that weighed into how people voted in the federal election as he continues to threaten tariffs and his 51st state comments. This also marks President Donald Trump's first 100 days in office. ABC's Karen Travers has a recap of what's gone down.
President Trump came into his second term promising swift change.
The golden age of America begins right now.
He hit the ground running, issuing more than 200 executive actions on his first day. He rescinded 78 Biden-era actions, declared a national emergency at the southern border, and commuted and pardoned January 6 rioters.
These people have been destroyed.
The president relying on executive actions to move his agenda forward, signing more than 140 since January 20th, according to the Federal Register. He has signed 5 bills into law. The first, the Laken-Riley Act, named for the 22-year-old Georgia nursing student who was killed allegedly by an undocumented migrant. As he promised on the campaign trail, the Trump administration taking action on immigration. ICE raids across the country targeting undocumented migrants. The Department of Homeland Security claiming there have been 150,000 deportations so far. President Trump's biggest action on the economy, a sweeping set of steep tariffs on nearly 90 countries, a move he said would boost the economy and bring back manufacturing to the U.S.
My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day.
But the stock market took a nosedive. A week later, the president pausing the tariffs on most countries for 90 days.
We don't want to hurt countries that don't need to be hurt, and they all want to negotiate.
But the trade standoff with China continues, the president putting a 145% tariff on Chinese goods and China retaliating. Experts warning that if this continues, Americans could see higher prices or empty shelves. Trump vowed during the campaign to end the war between Russia and Ukraine on day one. In February, an explosive meeting in the Oval Office.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III.
President Trump put billionaire businessman Elon Musk in charge of reshaping the federal government, slashing the workforce and cutting costs.
This is the chainsaw for bureaucracy.
At least 217 lawsuits have been filed challenging the administration's actions, 15 explicitly related to DOGE. Karen Travers, ABC News, the White House.
Turning to the markets now, Canada's main stock index closed up along with U.S. markets, in part on hopes of softening of trade tensions. The Canadian dollar rose slightly. The price of gold dropped $14.10. Oil dropped $1.63. Natural gas rose by 6 cents. Aluminum rose $6. In Toronto, the TSX rose by almost 76 points. The Venture Index rose by almost 2 points. In New York, the Nasdaq rose 95 points and the Dow Jones rose by 300 points. Still ahead, what it's like to spend 200 days in space. The BC Wildfire Service says crews are battling a blaze that was discovered yesterday northeast of Squamish. But it says the fire, which is about 4 hectares in size, is now being classified as being held. The service says it is anticipating crews will continue to make progress due to the ongoing rainy forecast, adding there is no immediate threat to public safety or property. We hear now from one of the latest astronauts to return from space after spending nearly 200 days there. Here's ABC's Lionel Moyes.
NASA's oldest active-duty astronaut is for the first time discussing his return to Earth after more than 200 days in space. He says the weightlessness made him feel decades younger.
I still feel like a little kid inside, and I probably act more like a little kid than a grown-up.
Don Pettit recently wrapped up his 7-month mission on the space station, returning in a Russian-made spacecraft on his 70th birthday.
As much as I love exploring space, going into the frontier, and making observations and doing the mission, you do reach a time where it's time to come home. And here I am.
He's now spent 590 days in space, over 4 missions, placing him 3rd on NASA's all-time list.
I want to do things in space that you can only do in space, and I'll worry about catching up with TV programs and things like that after I come back.
In addition to research, he says he liked to keep busy tinkering with things, once spending 3 hours fixing a $12 razor. He also took 670,000 photos while in space, often sharing them on social media.
When I'm looking out the window and just enjoying the view, it's like, oh, wow, a meteor. Oh, wow, look at that. Man, there's a flash there. What's that? And oh, look at that, a volcano going off. And it's like, okay, where's my camera? I got to record that.
And he says he is not interested in retiring. Lionel Moyes, ABC News, New York.
And we leave you tonight with an inspiring story of one man's fitness journey that helped him overcome adversity and embrace positivity. Here's CTV's Adam Sawatsky.
My life. Before he grew up to speak publicly about his athletic shoes,
And they played a pivotal role in my life. They're very important to me.
Shavain Meni says he was a boy suffering from a painful condition that left him confined to his bed for almost a year.
After that, everything went downhill for me.
When he returned to school, his grades descended, his weight increased, and the then 14-year-old began being bullied.
Every day was darkness. Every day was sadness.
Until one day, when he was 16, Shavain says he hit rock bottom.
I was like, this is not where I want to be life. This is not where my story ends.
That's when Shavain fell to his knees and felt compelled to do push-ups.
It went horrible. I wasn't able to do even more than two to 3 push-ups.
But instead of being deterred, Shavain set the unlikely goal of running a 50-kilometer ultramarathon.
I made the vow to myself that day. No matter how hard an obstacle will be, I will keep pushing forward.
After months of training up to 5 hours a day, Shavain finished a series of shorter races before eventually completing not 1, but 2 ultramarathons.
I felt very happy. Of course, it was joy, but that doesn't end right there.
Shavain was inspired to accomplish even more goals, including holding a plank for 1 minute while balancing 76 kilograms, more than 167 pounds, on his back.
Every record that I broke was wearing these shoes right here.
And everything that happened before he began wearing them, Shavain says, he's actually grateful for.
All the negative things, because that transformed me into becoming a positive person.
And while this speech recently won him first place in a local Toastmasters competition, the 21-year-old says he's ultimately honing his communication skills in the hopes of inspiring others to overcome their adversity.
Once you take those first steps, it's going to be a whole roller coaster of your journey, and you're going to not even believe all the things that you accomplished.
Adam Sawatsky, CTV News, North Vancouver.
That's our news for now. For more local news, visit us at cftktv.com. All of our casts and stories also go up on our CFTK-TV YouTube page. Thanks for watching.